Hello and welcome to Autistic Radio. Thank you to the kindness of our sponsors, coldpack.co.uk. You can support us by using their website to buy your cryotherapy needs, either as a practitioner or a home user. But here we are. Harry's in the studio. Take it away.
Thanks, Jules. Hello all. This is Harry's Facebook for Sunday, the 11th of January 2026. And this is where we discuss and share the Facebook posts that have been shared on the autisticradio.com Facebook page. And the first post is from Soulfully Neurodivergent, which is a personal blog. It shares the following. You know how we have the word mansplaining? We need a similar word for the neurotypicals doing that to neurodivergent people. What's people's thoughts? The reason that I shared this is we know about the word mansplaining, about the patronising terminology, the patronising attitude the mansplaining does. And from what I'm taking from this post is the patronising or downright brutal attitude for how some neurotypical people refer to neurodivergent people, including people with autism.
I think I've only had that happen once with just a regular, member of society, but I feel it sometimes from professionals.
Yeah, I think I've heard some people actually say that. Not in that sort of way, the mansplaining sort of template, for want of a better term. But someone telling someone who is neurodivergent what neurodivergent is, or autistic people what autism is, to them, even though they know what it is, but they're being told who they are and basically given a sort of life description, sort of being downtrodden and patronised. Or maybe not downtrodden, maybe that's a bit harsh, depending on the experience of whoever's had that experience. But basically doing it with good intentions, but still, it still leaves a bad taste in the mouth, even though it's done, not with bad intentions at all. The next post is from Own Time and Space, who is a charity. The next post is from Own Time and Space, which is a page on children and parenting. supporting and empowering neurodiverse families, lived experience and professional expertise, autism, psychology, education, SCN, PG, CERT professionals, community groups, one-to-one family support, workshop and training on neurodivergence, advocacy for SEN, based in the UK. And they shared the following. 2 years of own time and space. Today we celebrated everything this space stands for. Connection, creativity, regulation, laughter, and belonging. From messy play to movement, sensory calm to shared smiles, today was special. Thank you to every family who has walked through our doors, supported us, trusted us, and grown with us over the last 2 years. We are so proud of what this space has become, and we're only just getting started. And they share some pictures of what they do. What's people's thoughts?
There's no patronising language in this. It's lovely to see that a group has put together a space where some autistic kids can express themselves, play with the things and be out there. And then when they've posted about it, they haven't talked down to them. They've just simply said what it is and how it works and that it's been successful, and it's just very respectful. I like that.
Yeah, I like it too. What I like about it, apart from what you said, Jules, which I totally agree with, the lack of patronising language, which is always welcome, is knowing that there's somewhere like this. And it's a fairly simple concept in a way. A safe space. Not medicalised, it doesn't seem. A safe space for autistic children, the families. And what I also like is it's a milestone celebration. 2 years since it started. 2 years since they began the journey of what they want to do. And the celebration of what they've done so far, and also saying that it's only the beginning.
You know what I noticed? I'm picking up on the beauty of the photographs. The colors are very rich. Somebody spent a lot of time on these photographs. Many of them don't show the faces, except for this one, where the people involved in the activity just look so focused. And to me, that means whoever curated these photos really cares.
Yeah, it's such a soothing colour, that purple. Although, everybody's different, and some folk like that colour and some won't, so it's not a matter of whether they like it or not, but we have to distinguish that people have different sensory realities. So, getting in touch with a sensory reality is the vibe I'm getting from this.
There's such simplicity in it as well. They've created a space with materials, and they appear to be letting the children decide what it's all about. It doesn't seem imposed on them. And generally things get overcomplicated, especially when somebody's trying to help a different group than themselves. There's usually a controlling element to the whole thing. But just from this post, it looks as though they're allowing the kids themselves to lead it. And the intensity of what they're doing is created by themselves, rather than the normal thing is to have children being held by the hands and instructed, and children paraded to demonstrate what's happening. And they haven't done that here. And that gives the impression of the group as one that is really respectful of neurodivergence, just from this post.
There will always be that adult guidance though, won't there? It's just a fact of life. I was having a kind of big debate this week with someone about, children's literature, stories for kids, and how these stories are never written by kids, they're written by adults, with that sort of childlike mind, perhaps at best. But what would a child write if it had the chance to write? Well, children do tell stories, but whether or not that's afforded is another matter. So, and there would be an element, I think, sometimes, maybe I'm assuming too much, but there would be an element of chaos sometimes in voluntary childhood activity. I can recall creating our own stories and realities when we were younger, and there was no adult guidance really in some of it, but that's kind of gone by the time you're a teenager and you're being well trained. So hopefully that's not too much what's going on there, but I thought I'd bring that in a wee bit given what you just said, Jules.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Ray. But parents generally, when they're doing their best work, they're not directing. They're supporting and enabling, but they're not directing. I know we live busy worlds and there's safeguarding and there's just get things done because we have to go on to the next thing. But when parents are able to do their best work with their kids, it's the supporting thing. And I think that moves over to the autistic, non-autistic world. When services are there designed for autistic people, they are designed for autistic people, not by autistic people. And they are generally prescriptive, and even with the best intention, they don't just benignly suppression from this, that's what's happening.
Just a final thing, I'd say that the title or name of the group is fantastic given what we've just spoken about, Own Time and Space.
Oh yeah, like a double meaning on own.
Sorry, I don't know if you're still there, but I thought about that after I said what I said. I was just thinking your own time and space, was what hit me first. But yeah, the double meaning is there.
The next post is from myself. It's my inspired mind, Harry's blog. And what it talks about is a football fan's journey, Dumbarton FC. And it says the following: the picture shared shows me unhappy. And this is only natural, as it is after watching my favourite club, Dumbarton FC, lose to Stirling Albion that day. However, the day was the 27th of December, and it marked a year since I became a season ticket holder of the club. I was never interested in Scotland's obsession of association football as a child, and was even ridiculed for this because all the boys liked football, and I didn't. It just wasn't for me at the time. However, as time progressed into adulthood, I slowly developed an interest through my initial following of the Scotland national football team. Dumbarton were the local football league team to where I lived. So from around 1999, I started to follow their results, hoping for an emotional response for the win, lose or draw. It took time, but the result outcomes began to matter in what mood it created. Things slowly progressed, and not being a fan of crowds, it took time to attend my first game. Eventually, I went down to get the experience, and it grew on me. This eventually grew to occasional visits over the years, and every result mattered. For years I pondered and was asked, why don't I become a season ticket holder? I was never sure of such a commitment, not because of results, the style of football, or location. It was a question of if I could sit in a crowd of people on a regular basis, which would be approximately every 2 weeks, considering league games from August to May. The perfect, not perfect opportunity came along in December 2024, during which Dumbarton FC were going through an uncertain future and in need of funds. A half-season ticket purchase was advertised. I felt, considering the position, this was the best time to give it a go. Despite the uncertainty at the time, I felt it was one of the best decisions I ever made. The same seat, the regular routine. Even though performances and results weren't great, and things remained uncertain for a time, I felt comfortable. I was happy to be there. I was happy of the new regular date in the diary. Eventually, the club was thankfully saved from certainty with new owner Mario Laponte taking over. When the season ended in May 2025, I was satisfied enough to progress to a full season ticket for the season ahead. Time then flies, and a year has passed, and the glum on my face is not lack of enjoyment or regretting my decision. It was just a natural response to results not being what I wanted. This is what football is about: win, lose or draw, and feeling part of something special. Harry, what's your thoughts?
Wow, I really like this. It explains to me some things that I hadn't considered. And it also, in what you're explaining about the regularity but also the change, you changed over a period of time when other people think we can't change, but you did it on your own terms and you did it gradually. You know, the plasticity of the brain is also the plasticity of us as people, how we can change ourselves, as long as it's us moulding ourselves rather than from the outside. And then you found your own way of making that comfortable routine and involving yourself in it. I think it's a really good way of explaining to a lot of people how autism is not this blanket concept. It is a movable, changeable thing. We are human beings with brains. We're not just a fixed idea ourselves, even if we're interested in a routine and a fixed thing sometimes that makes us feel comfortable.
This is what I used to refer to as finding an in to something. It's like making something that seems uninteresting and not part of your world somehow interesting to you, to find the connection. And that's why I think it's a lot more than sport in what Harry's written here. You know, it can apply to a lot of different social scenarios, but also to personal relationship scenarios. We will often say, I'm not this, I'm not that, I don't do this. And yet, maybe 10 years later, you're doing it, and you maybe not even know why you've ended up doing what you didn't do before. But somehow you made it of interest to you. You found a connection to it. And nobody should do anything prescribed. Nobody should feel pressure or influence to do anything. But if you can find your own connection and open up to that, that's kind of living, isn't it?
Yes. The interesting thing is what's brought anything of interest to me is by someone suggesting something, a friend. I don't know about others, but in my experience, each friend that I've had has given an opportunity to discover something new. When I was younger, when I was a child, nobody who was a friend of mine was that interested in football. So there wasn't that sort of kind of encouragement to, not to be forced to like it, but someone to actually sit and explain about it, or even go through a journey with someone to liking it. But I've had friends who have, excuse me, have introduced me to a new band, new TV program, these sort of things. And that's where the football came along, is it was introduced and it was something slow. And I was thinking, when I was introduced to the sport, I'm thinking, well, the way in was the national team of football because it's your country they're representing. It's like if they win or lose, it matters a lot. And then it just became a journey of what's the local football team, something that mattered. So if there's a connection there, an enjoyment there, and that's how the journey went. But I think the most important thing that I wanted to put in this particular blog, and what's been discussed already, is it was my decision to pursue that passion, to pursue that hobby, to do that thing. There was no heavy encouragement or saying that you must do this. It was like a kind of gradual journey. I mean, there might have been that instance where I would be interested, and I thought, no, it's not for me, and I'd move on. Even though I can't think of anything at the moment, there must have been things I've tried, and I thought, no, that's not for me, and I've moved on. But this was something that did. It kind of had a connection, it had a meaning. It's something I was interested in. And I don't know about other autistic people, but there's not a lot I like. There's certain things that I like, and it's a comfort blanket in a way, knowing that there's things that I definitely like and comfortable with. And that's what I was putting across in this blog. And this sort of kind of normal thing that if you need to like something in childhood to like something later in life, which, as we know, a lot of nonsense. It's about experience and about life, and it's about, as Jules has actually said already, is that autistic people aren't fixed human beings and willing to experience things in different times of life, childhood, adulthood, late adulthood. It's just the journey of life, and that's what I was trying to illustrate in the blog.
Harry, would you say a big thing here is trust? Because that's what I'm feeling. Trust in your friends, obviously, because they're kind of introducing you to things. But also, I've found trust in yourself to be confident in what you like and what you want. Because sometimes knowing what you want can be half the battle.
Yes, that is true. Trust and feeling safe. And I like the buzz of discovering something that, hey, I like this. Because I feel within myself, maybe I'm not fussy, but I feel that I'm fussy. It's when I find something that I like, I grab hold onto it for dear life and just appreciate that that moment has come. And appreciate it so much that it becomes part of routine and it becomes something to look forward to and something lifelong.
There can be a weird and exciting novelty in repetition.
That was so beautifully written, Robbie. And to me, not to everybody, it is the most beautiful game. But I think to a lot of people around the world, it is a beautiful game. And my friend, who's also autistic, and I, last night, we joined Canada Red. It's a big soccer fan club, and we call it soccer here. We have to distinguish it from American and Canadian football. But her special interest is football. And she does call it football because she went to university in Scotland.
In the text, Robbie's talked about he was never interested in football and he found socialising through music, through the same predictability and the control of what I play. I choose songs I play. And also, I need to take part rather than just watch. I would do archery, but have no interest in following other archers or being competitive. So sometimes when it comes to a hobby, even in sport, it's not just about watching something in a competitive sense, but doing something, not in a competitive sense, but doing something you enjoy, a hobby that you enjoy. And in football, I did do that for some time. I did actually play it, but I was competitive in fairness. But I can see how people can do things and not be competitive. It's just doing something you enjoy.
We do like to solve a puzzle.
I'm more of a solo sport person, like um running, cycling, little triathlons. Not anymore though, but cycling still, yeah. The only companion I have is my dog in his basket.
Robbie also shared something that I'm familiar with. I was forced to play football in school, and I was one of the children the teens were forced to have. And I can recall that in school in a few sports. And looking back at school, for football especially, humiliation of being the last to be picked or not being picked, as Robbie's just shared. But for some reason, particularly in football, if you were the first to be picked, or if you were good at it, it was a status symbol. It's like if you were good at sport, it was like this. You were this great. It kind of your name was highlighted. It was like you were not above others. Well, suppose you were in a way. Like you were. It's like this sort of status symbol saying if you were good at something, or if someone thought or said you were good at something, i.e., like an authority, like a school. It's like you were treated better than you would be if you weren't able to do it, or, God forbid, you weren't interested in doing it. I suppose a lot of school was, as Robbie says, compliance, and you did a lot of things you didn't want to do. And maybe that was why I wasn't that interested in sport at all as a child, because it was something that it was something you were told you must do as part of being taught, part of education. It was like, with anything, it's like you enjoy something because you choose to do it rather than being told you must do it.
Yeah, that traumatic introduction to any formal experience, especially at school. You reminded me of the people I used to know when I was young who found some reason to avoid PE. They would usually get a sort of medical letter or something. And really, it was because they just didn't like the exposure. They just didn't like the whole situation of being forced into certain things. And what you were saying there about, that scene, which you see often in movies and plays and things and stories about the last to be picked. Yeah, all that. This makes me think of something I've been looking at recently, this idea of like how the world is kind of mythic, it kind of, people fall into roles. The environment almost forces it upon you. And if you're in a strict environment like schooling, a system, then you can't escape, can you? And you're given the shit role, the bad role, not the role you would possibly choose from your heart, which is the mythic, I think, which is like your place in the world, beyond systems. So I'm getting a bit deep there, but, it's a reflection on what you've written here, Harry. Thank you.
Yeah, cheers for sharing. Me too. Last picked and often had the basketball thrown at my head on purpose. Luckily, my sister was athletic in the team sport way and stuck up for me. I had a football kind of kicked at me deliberately because I wasn't that good. So I can relate to that, what you were saying, Teresa. The next post is from Else for Autism, which is a non-profit organisation in the United States, transforming lives, Else for Autism, the Else Centre of Excellence, Earn the Else, Game on Autism, Sports, You Can Employ, Big Easy, Cafe by Ernie Els. And they shared the following. Our clients in the Adult Day Training ADT programme are finding their rhythm through music therapy. From singing to playing instruments, each session is filled with creativity, connection, and confidence. The benefits of music therapy for individuals with autism are powerful. The benefits of music therapy for individuals with autism are powerful. Here are just a few. It supports communication and self-expression, reduces stress and helps regulate emotions, encourages social interaction and connection, improves focus, attention, and memory, and builds confidence and emotional awareness. And it shared some pictures of the programme, and it also has a link to the programme itself. What's people's thoughts?
This place looks like fun, too. And I just looked up who Ernie Els was. His son is autistic, and this looks really good.
From the text, the word clients isn't received very well. And anytime I see something saying clients, it always kind of makes me kind of not be keen. But then again, clients has been used in my experience instead of patient, which in the language world is supposed to be more positive, more inclusive, and less patronising. But it can still sound patronising depending on who's reading it and how it's described. The next post is from Diversity Kids. It's a community page, programs, tips, strategies, resources, support, coaching, and training around inclusion and diversity in children's services and education. A one-stop shop for all your cultural and bilingual inclusion support needs, based in Australia. And they share a quote, which is unknown source. But the quote says, "They laugh at me because I'm different. I laugh at them because they're all the same." What's people's thoughts?
I remember the first time I really thought about that. I was out with my daughter, who is neurodivergent, and maybe she was 12, and we were in this really hip part of town, and these two teenagers were dressed identically, but in a way that they might have thought was 100% unique and really edgy. And my daughter said so loud that really loud. Do you think they phoned each other this morning to decide what to wear?
What I found interesting about the quote, it's goodbye childhood again, I suppose. It's like you were laughed at or criticised because you were different and not within the so-called norm. But this quote turns it on its head by saying, well, I'm different, but everybody else, to me, is all the same. So if you turn on its head like that, it makes you, well, it's made me feel a little bit better. Well, I'm different, I'm unique, I'm me, but everybody else, by the way people are criticising me for who I am, are all the same. So all these people all blend into one. There's no uniqueness, there's no personality. It's just like the average person they talk about all rolled into one. So it's one way of reminding yourself that being different isn't a bad thing.
Everybody else is unique. They just don't accept it.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it, yeah. Everybody is unique, of course they are. But it's accepting it and not accepting it. The thing of keeping up with the Joneses sort of thing, the feeling to need to mask, suppress yourself, because if you do things too differently or do things naturally that you feel to do, it's like it's artificial and it's not real. And it gives a false sense to other people that may be more obviously different. And it gives a very confused message, a very damaging message, is that don't be yourself, comply and do what you're supposed to do in terms of these set rules that are given to you by people that probably don't even follow those rules themselves.
Takes a lot more bravery to be different.
Try again, Robbie, sorry.
Takes a lot more bravery to be different and not follow the trends.
Because others laugh at you, I don't think that justifies laughing at other people.
Not laughing at other people, but laughing back at the people that are trying to laugh at you. And what Robbie says is about fashion, about what you wear. I mean, I remember I've been told, and this is in adulthood, that I dress like an old man. I don't wear clothes I should be wearing, like I was in my 20s at the time. And it wasn't someone telling me what to do, it was basically a sort of criticism. And it's like, what? I dress like an old man? What does an old man dress like? You know what I mean? It's just like these stereotypes that you're supposed to dress in a certain way at a certain age, doing certain things. And, just Robbie saying that and then putting it in the text is just, it just threw up a few, memories of how ridiculous, society can be.
Did you not call them cheeky bastards, Harry?
No doubt I did.
I'm here in Goa at the moment in India, and I'm in a kind of alternative resort, not exactly the 5-star luxury place. It's the kind of place where people are hanging out for a long time, perhaps even doing a bit of work while they're away. Mostly youngish people, but yeah, people in different ages, perhaps even people who live here now. And I wear a linen suit in red and a hat in the same way that I wear suits and jackets back home. I have not changed my home clothing particularly except to suit the weather. White trousers instead of dark trousers. And I am surrounded by people who have come here to be incredibly individual, who have the same tattoos, the same piercings, the same alternative hairstyles, the same alternative clothing, and they have all adopted very similar lifestyles. You can stand by the street with the cows and watch Royal Enfield motorcycle after Royal Enfield motorcycle go past with the same thing. The guy on the front, the girl on the back, they look identical to all the other couples on these bikes. And it's just so tragic that these people are conforming in their unconformity.
Well, it's commercial, isn't it?
My grandfather used to say it made it very difficult to pick up my, to pick up a kid from high school because you'd never be able to tell which one was yours.
I remember looking at those really baggy pants that hippies wear. They're kind of like sultan pants or something. And I thought, they look like they may be very comfortable. And then when I investigated, the price of them was unbelievable. Now, if you've got a friend in the family who's really good at making clothes, then maybe you could make up your own, buy some fabrics and get in the sewing machine, whatever. I had an ex who used to make me baggy trousers. But that's what I mean by commercial. There's like an industry out there selling alternative clothing and alternative culture to people.
You don't have to get any of these things made. They're cheap as chips. Because when people get back to the UK, they put them all in the charity shops because they can't wear these clothes that have been part of this lifestyle anymore. They have to then reconform to wherever they are.
Oh yeah, Jules, I do hunt the second-hand shops for items like this, but I never find them. It's pot luck.
The next post is from Panda. Charity organisation. Panda stands for Promoting Autism Neurodiversity Awareness. And they're based in the UK. And they shared the following. It's regarding EBA. Musing of an autist, autism, EBA, and latest research on outcomes. Another autistic aha moment. New research challenges the more hours, better outcomes idea in EBA therapy. A large real-world study looked at data from 725 autistic children receiving community-based EBA. It tested the long-assumed belief that more hours of ABA per week automatically led to better progress. The results were mixed and pretty revealing. Children who spent more time in ABA met more short-term goals, but higher hours actually predicted slower progress in communication and day-to-day adaptive skills. Dangerous or challenging behaviours improved over time, regardless of how many hours children received. The researchers also found that a child's initial communication abilities were a stronger predictor of progress than their ABA dosage. Their conclusion? People need to rethink the idea that intensity is a key factor. ABA practice guidelines might need to tone down the one-size-fits-all push for 30 to 40 hours a week, because quality, individual differences, and meaningful progress matter more than clocking hours. But our belief at Panda is that the best dosage of ABA is 0 hours. Any intervention should have first do no harm as a base rock principle. And many autistic adults and self-advocates say ABA has harmed them by prioritising compliance and normalising their behaviour over their autonomy, comfort and identity, with some describing it as a traumatising or even comparable to conversion therapy. Common themes in first-hand accounts of those who suffered such therapy include being trained to mask autistic traits, having boundaries and communication of distress ignored, and developing anxiety, PTSD-like symptoms, or lifelong difficulties around consent and saying no. So I say it again and again and again. Anything that affects us must be shaped by us. What's people's thoughts?
Sorry, I kind of switched off.
What I would think is, when you were reading it, I was growing tense, growing tense, growing tense until they said it should begin at 0. And my question was going to be, I think ABA in some kind of heavy dose could only lead to a highly masked, really stressed, traumatized person.
Autistic Radio has spoken with people that are involved in ABA, the people that know the ABA people themselves. And it's always been our position to be as fair as possible to listen from their side as well as autistic people's side, of course, on people that have been affected by this. Anytime I see anything of behavioural therapy, though, always seems to be like they're trying to shape you rather than help you. And that's from the examples that you're given by people generally that are against it, which is fair enough. They're not going to promote it in any language at all if they're against it. So it's always good to keep an open mind on these things, but people have been affected and people have anxiety because of how it was done. But maybe it's not what it is itself, it's how it's been done by certain therapists and certain people and in certain cultures. Because it's been discussed that ABA in the UK is not as brutal, for want of a better word, in terms of what it is and what it does in comparison to what it may be or what it is like in the United States.
I think we have a difficulty here between the conflation of ABA, applied behavioural analysis, and behaviourism, the science of studying human behaviour. I don't think anyone in the autistic community believes that training the autism out of them is a good thing. And I don't think these enforced regimes that are comprised within ABA can ever be anything other than harmful. And around the world, the increase in these old-fashioned, outdated techniques doesn't stop. ABA is more and more practiced around the world, especially here in India where I am at the moment. And it's practiced like this because parents want their children normalized. And people can sell them through insurance companies therapies that give the appearance of normalizing their children, short term and with a residue of trauma. The reason we speak to people who come from behaviourist grounds is to have a conversation and a communication and an influence, because standing outside their offices with placards makes no difference. What Panda is doing with the research is incredibly important, and it's a different part of the whole picture. We feel here that part of the picture is to discuss with individuals and give them a little bit more insight and lead them to understand where some of the things that they think are progressive and have changed from these old-fashioned ideas actually are still the same thing. We understand that we can barely make a dent on this, that it's a scratch, but it's a scratch in the right direction. Having conversations with practitioners and making them say the things about being person-centered or following the client or supporting instead of overruling will eventually have tiny little changes and tiny little differences, and we all have to do it in our own way. So no, here at Autistic Radio, we do not support conversion therapy. We support having a conversation to try and change things in a tiny way.
Does that final sentence indicate that there is still an acceptance of some kind of therapy? You know, anything that affects us must be shaped by us. It's not saying, like, yeah, no therapy at all. I mean, I might not be making myself totally clear here, but it's just, I think that's quite a positive kind of glint there, that instead of total rejection, there is, if we're going to go down this path of intervention, say, it must be done in consultation, with quality, with inclusiveness, and an open mind.
I think you're right. And also what I like about this is that it uses a scientific method saying, you know, here's what happens with like full on, and that will allow people who are closed to listening to an all or nothing argument against it to pay attention, because people do respond positively to scientific methods. If that makes any sense. I felt really nervous at the start when they were reading it, but then I thought, oh, hey, I can learn something from this, and that some of the people who are, you know, old school about it would be able to listen to this.
Well, thanks
Yeah, I'm
everyone. Sorry, Raymond, you want to go? Just about your time, so give you.
Not just about 30 seconds. It's just I'm doing that classic autistic thing, I feel, for me, of reading something backwards. The third last paragraph says any intervention should have first do no harm as a base rock principle. So in reading it backwards, I'm getting a wee bit more out of it than it was read the correct way, if you see what I mean. So anyway, I'll let you finish off tonight's show, Harry.
Thanks, Raymond. Thanks, everyone. That was a great discussion, as always. And thanks to the people who shared these posts for the topics that we talked about tonight. So this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday, the 11th of January 2026, which is part of Spectrum Voices Conversation, which is live every Sunday from 5:55 p.m. to 7 p.m. UK time. And I look forward to doing the same next week, as always. So thank you once again, and good night.